All right, we continue the pregame entertainment as we walk you up to that 1:30 kickoff Mountain Time here at Canvas Stadium. The Rams hosting the Spartans. Marty Cesario here on the Tailgate Show, sourcing the visiting radio analyst. Good dude, he's the right guy. It's Kevin Richardson, 14th year as the analyst for the San Jose State Radio Network. And here we are, Kevin, moving into the second phase of the college football season. Conference play now begins.
Yeah, conference play. I mean, all in. And how about this conference? How much fun has this thing been, right? It just, some guys playing some great football like Fresno State, and then they get clipped over at Hawaii. And I guess you and I aren't going to be put in purgatory this week and have to listen to Trent Dilfer talk about how great the Bulldogs are the entire week. Because, of course, they're on a bye week. And, Nevada going up there and winning at Boise State. Really interesting. And for San Jose State, for us, it's really been trying to kind of figure out where we're at. You go down, you lose to USC in game 2. You think it's a good loss, and then everything caves in at USC. You go over to Hawaii and get what I call a good win, because anytime you can win in Hawaii, I'm the crankiest Hawaii traveler you've ever seen when we go over there for that game. As you know, It's a hard trip. It's just not that much fun. And to get a win, especially in the stadium they have with no fans, it's just a weird vibe. So got that done. And then the trip to Kalamazoo, Michigan. When we landed, I remember thinking to myself, if I had to try to go on one of your hikes that I always see on Twitter, there's no way I could have done it. I mean, that's just a lot of travel, 8,000 miles. So didn't play well, played really bad, quite frankly. And then came back and were able to get what I think was a pretty good win against a one-win New Mexico State team, but a dangerous New Mexico State team, if that makes sense. If I don't sound like a homer on that one, but that was a New Mexico team that could light you up offensively if you didn't do what you needed to do. So I think San Jose is in a pretty good place. We were talking about altitude this week at the press conference, which is funny as, we sit here in the San Francisco Bay Area with good weather all the time and no altitude. So I think they're ready to go. Going to be a lot of fun to really see. I think the next 2 weeks really blows this thing up Mountain West style.
You're referring to all the things that have happened, the Fresno State loss at Hawaii. You think of, Boise State sitting at 2-3 right now, and they've got another test with BYU. It's just all wide open, and both head coaches during their midweek press conferences, I mean, that came up, right? It's, what is the state of the Mountain West? And they lean towards it's a strength. It's a kind of a black and blue thing, right? There's a lot of really good teams to where you just don't know who you're going to get. And then there's the elements of the super seniors. Got a lot of stacked rosters with veteran players, and that includes you. We're talking with Kevin Richardson from the San Jose State Spartans Radio Network. So let's talk about those strengths. And you have a lot of veteran guys. One strength that head coach Steve Adazio for Colorado State is focusing on, he likes your defensive front.
That's been a real interesting evolution from my seat, because that's where they've always struggled, is defensive front. And Derek Odom, the defensive coordinator, I like him because he's an 80s guy like me, and I think gets my jokes. But he tries to do a lot of things over the years, because he was making up for the fact that he didn't have a front seven that could stand there and play physical. Now he does. He's got 3 down guys that are big and strong. And, Cade Hall, obviously Mountain West Conference Defensive Player of the Year last year, but a guy that's just as good. And I think Cade would tell you more explosive is Viliami Fahoku on the other side of that defensive line. And then, with the linebackers, They've played pretty well. Kyle Harmon, I think he's got 43 tackles rolling into this contest. Missed a half a game because of a targeting penalty. So he missed the first half at Western Michigan. But he's clearly the leader on that defense. But you've got a guy like Jordan Cobbs that was a backup playing special teams and is playing really good football. And I've always felt like if you watch a defense and you can start rotating in that 5th and 6th linebacker, and those guys play up, not down, it feels like it's going the right way. So defensively, I think they're pretty proud of what they've done, and I think they should be. And again, it's been getting those big guys in that can play on that D line.
And that would obviously get attention of head coach Steve Adazio, because that's what he's building at CSU.
Right.
You got strength up front there defensively, and it's not just one or two stars. It's a lot of impact players. Now, something that also fits, San Jose State seems like to brag about your tight end. We know a little something about tight end.
Yeah.
We've got Trey McBride. You have Derek Deese, who's another one of those super senior guys, a senior graduate. What makes Derek Deese special at that tight end position?
Derek Deese is an interesting guy. They don't make guys that are 6'5", 245, 250 that run like a sub 4.7 40, right? And Derek Deese is that kind of guy. I think Derek's a guy that is pretty darn athletic, and I think last week showed he found his way to the open spot in the defense. And I think that was just his maturity in terms of understanding, hey, if I slow down just a little bit here in the gap, in the zone, I'm probably going to get the ball. And man, Nick just kept saying, if Derek's open, I'm going to throw it to him. And it was pretty darn productive. And then Derek's pretty aggressive when he gets the ball in terms of, creating those extra yards. So that's been a much needed piece of the passing game. Last year you had Bailey Gaither and Trey Walker that could just blow things open. We don't have that guy this year. So it's got to be somebody like Derek picking up that slack. And he's playing well. It'll be fun to see if he can stay on track this week.
Kevin Richardson, San Jose State Radio Network. You walked us into what is the most dominant topic when we're approaching a San Jose State game, quarterback position.
Yeah.
You've got Nick Nash, the junior. You've got Nick Starkel, the senior graduate. So what is your feeling on what we're going to see between those quarterbacks?
So it's interesting with Nick Starkel. One of the things we talk about on our broadcast every week is this transfer portal and transfers in general. And Nick Starkel, he's a three-stopper is what I call him, right? Started at Texas A&M, was at Arkansas when San Jose actually went down and beat Arkansas, and then showed up at San Jose State, was lights out last year, right? Touchdown to interception ratio was great. Completion percentage was high. Numbers aren't as good this year. Was getting shelled a lot this year too. In all fairness to him, the numbers would have to be down with as much pressure as he was taking, but still a really good player. And an interesting thing was for me is I kept thinking after last year, does Nick leave? Because it seemed like the draft was a little bit light with quarterbacks. And his feeling was, hey, I've never played a full season. I want to come back and play, 12 games of college football. I love college football. And of course, was injured at Western Michigan. I have no inside scoop this week, and that's the truth. I think it'll be Nick Nash. And what does Nick bring to the table? He stepped in last year down at San Diego State. Nick Starkel got knocked out in the first series. Nick Nash stepped in. San Jose State beat San Diego State behind Nick Nash, and then Nick was at receiver this year because they were trying to manufacture some talent out on the edge. You get the injury to Starkel, and by the time we'd gotten home, I think from Kalamazoo, Michigan, they decided, well, let's move Nick back to quarterback. He came in and killed it. I mean, at one point, I think he was 8 of 8, 9 of 9, hadn't missed, right? Brings a little different kind of swagger to the offense, if you will. He'll pull it down and run, whereas Starkel will do everything to not pull it down and run. So probably seen a guy who can actually pull it down and make a play with his legs.
Well, we're about to find out what head coach Brent Brennan's going to do at the quarterbacking position, and we're going to learn more about each of these squads as the Rams and Spartans get ready to do battle here in Fort Collins. Kevin Richardson, 14th year as the analyst for the San Jose State Radio Network. Always good to reconnect with you, my man. You have a good broadcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us, and boy, we sure enjoy this facility here in Fort Collins and the city of Fort Collins. What a great place for college football.
Yeah, that part we're confident about. Fort Collins is a good spot to be. This is the Colorado State Sports Network from Learfield.